I'll just be passing the mic between us. Yeah, if you guys maybe go that side. Don't worry, we don't have slides. This is just a conversation. So what will happen is we'll quickly kick it off with maybe like a short introduction, talk a little bit about the portals. I had a couple of pre-prepared questions just because, you know, it's early morning. We will need a little bit of time to get into the groove of it. And then we'll open up the floor to questions. So yeah, I think just so that, yeah, you can see who's who, what's happening. When we looked last year, I looked at the stats of how the portals are growing, how the portal audience is growing. And I did a little statistical analysis because I'm a nerd like that. And I found that the only thing that's strongly correlated with the growing visitors is the number of content. So basically, the more content you put on your portal, the better your visitor numbers are growing. So because we already had kind of had a bit of this idea about like, we wanted to discuss a bit more about what are the different strategies, how are different rapidly growing portals approaching this challenge, how do they make their numbers grow, how do they make their content numbers grow. We wanted to have that conversation today, and hopefully our three panelists can share their best practices and advice. And I know that they have different approaches to this, so you will hear different perspectives and can decide which one works for you best. But the first question, maybe we could start off just talking a little bit about your portals. How are they used? What's their role in your organization? So maybe we start with Scott and then go onwards.
Yes, my name is Scott Murray, and I'm with Oklahoma State University Center for Health Sciences in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And our portal is scholars@okstate.edu. And our portal is, the key role for it is, I think, is the research profiles. Faculty and students love their research profiles. And we have two medical campuses, one in Tulsa and one an hour away in Tahlequah. One of the only tribal Indian Native American medical schools, medical college, and we do research profiles for both campuses.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to veer off topic real quickly just to thank Irena and everyone else with the Pure team for including me as part of this panel, because my grandfather was one of the construction workers who built this tower that we're sitting in today. So this is a really, thank you. It's a really special full circle moment for me. My name is Mark Zuloff. I am here representing the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, which is about 2.5 hours south of here. We are the flagship campus of the University of Illinois system, and I think President Killeen yesterday gave you all a pretty good idea of the size and scope and impact of our research endeavor, Barron. We have over 3,000. We had a little discussion about that yesterday. So we have over 3,000 faculty, including tenure-track faculty and specialized faculty, as well as many more researchers and scholars of other types. And on our Pure portal, we support profiles for 3,250 of those. We launched our Pure portal in the spring of 2016. I wasn't there for the original implementation, but I came on board shortly thereafter in the summer of 2016. And I've been in the driver's seat ever since. I'm the only full-time employee who's working on our Pure implementation, although I do get some wonderful support from a half-time graduate student position. Thank you to Elizabeth and others who have held that position before. We use our Pure system to support a range of research information management uses and services that fall broadly under three different use cases. One is using the portal as a research discovery and access site that we can point people to. We support a second use case, which is metadata reuse. So all that wonderful metadata that we're curating, we make sure that that's available to share out to other systems and applications. So we're supporting, beyond the pure portal, we're supporting over 1,000 faculty profiles across other university websites on our campus. And then our third main use case is supporting decision support and strategic reporting needs on our campus.
Okay, perfect. My name is Brian Rux. I work with the Idaho National Lab, and we are one of 4 Department of Energy national labs that have a Pure instance. So the main directive for when we started using Pure about 4 years ago was to increase internal collaboration within INL, because one of the most common situations we found was that researchers would tell us that they didn't know what the researcher next to them was working on, let alone the thousands of other researchers within the lab. So there was no systematic way to identify the research that the lab was producing by the researcher unless they went out to a site like Scopus or Web of Science and then would find researchers and then back in, okay, is this person still working at the lab? How long ago did they leave? Like they had to do they had to go outside to find out what we were doing. So what our original objective was to just show the rest of the lab what the other researchers were doing and hopefully get them to collaborate. The fingerprint was a big part of that because you could identify similar profiles within the system, and that got some traction. About a year ago, we took the portal public. It was internal only when we started. And then, so we've been seeing a flow of traffic from visitors reaching out, whether that's students or other individuals. We expanded the footprint of the portal. Instead of just targeting more seasoned researchers, we really made an effort to get the early career researchers and the postdocs and joint appointees excited about having a profile in our system, which has helped. And then we've started creating a number of dashboards that relate to compliance efforts, but we always make sure to link back to the source data. So it's another way for individuals to find the portal, because when they're looking at their compliance, they can get mad at us, I guess, in a way, and go, oh, where are they finding this out? And then they can find me, and then we can let them know how the data is generated and why we show that they're not currently in compliance. So those 3 efforts have really made a big difference. I think just getting people excited about the possibility that they can track information. We actually get a lot more feedback from our support personnel. Someone was talking the other day about communications needing data from their system, and our communications team loves Pure because they can see all the latest publications as soon as they come out, and they don't have to try to track them down themselves. And then our export compliance professionals. So I'm actually working more almost with our support staff than I am directly with the researchers. And then we also put a lot of the data in for the researchers. I have an intern that works with me every summer, and then we do an outreach to everyone that has a profile, and we tell them, hey, here's the link to your profile. We'd love to update it for you. We don't want to take any of your time, and that's something researchers love to hear. So we typically get about a 30% response rate from that summer initiative. So compared to our old system where we had multiple years where 0 were updated, 30% is pretty good. So
Yeah, that's amazing. Actually, building up on that, like a follow-up, how do you mostly grow the content? Is it relying on those outreach, relying on the automatic exporting, or maybe you have, especially I'm guessing for some content types, and it can vary, so some stuff you can import, some stuff you need the actual input. Maybe you could talk a bit more about how you're growing that content, the outreach and the automation versus personal charm, and getting reporters to getting academics to actually report to you what they are doing. Yeah, let's start again.
We have a process where we focus mostly on entering research posters for particularly faculty and students for several different conferences that we have on campus. And that's kind of our focus for the Pure thing. And one of the things we extend our coverage on that is we have a process where the library prints posters for the students and the faculty who assist the students. And so there's 2 librarians. We get that data that we get from the posters, and then we put them in the Pure, and the archive librarian puts the data in the Pure, and then we have a spreadsheet, and then listing all the authors of those posters, and those that already have profile are noted, and those that do not have a profile, we call it the No Pure Profile spreadsheet. And then the archive librarian passes that spreadsheet to me, and then I create the research profiles for them. And so we identify those authors that do not have Pure profiles, and most of them are medical students that don't have profiles yet, but sometimes there'll be residents, medical students that have moved on to be residences, and we'll identify them, and then so we expand even more research profiles in Pure, and then we notify them, and they love it. And so, and the faculty also like it a lot, and each faculty department has websites, and some of the departments require their faculty to have a research profile and a link next to their name on their website. So that kind of expands exposure Pure on our campus. So it's, I think it's been a really good thing on our on both campuses in Tulsa and Tahlequah, and everybody likes it a lot, and we've had a lot of really good feedback about it.
So as I mentioned, I've been working with Pure since 2016, but I've been on campus for a lot longer than that, coming up on 20 years. And I have long, prior to working with Pure, I long saw a need on campus for a centralized, easily accessible repository that would tie together much of the data that exists in all the different silos that are on our campus, right? Because I saw people every year, again and again, investing so much time in pulling together data from disparate sources to do reporting at the end of the year. And so that's been my approach to the Pure implementation on our campus, to use it as a way, not necessarily as a source, as an authority itself, but to tie together data from multiple authorities. So that those data are together, again, in a centralized, easily accessible site for people to access and to make available for reuse. And so I have focused on, as much as possible, automating the import of data into our system, which is not always possible. And so where it's not possible to automate, I focused on developing workflows to harvest data and clean data and load those data in bulk into the Pure backend. So, and I tend to think about it as I'm not supporting individual profiles. I'm sort of supporting profiles at scale by providing these automated workflows and these bulk load operations. And that's been very effective. We have an automated weekly import of publication data through the profile refinement service. That data is coming in from Scopus. Of course, we have some ad hoc efforts to fill in gaps in coverage. But we've also worked with data authorities on campus to pull in data beyond publication. So we've got an automated connection with our dataset repository. With our folks in the library, that was one of our first big successes. We've worked with our technology management folks to get their patents data and then tie that together with supplemental data from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and load that into our system. And in some cases, we are the authority for some of the data on campus. We've worked with the Office of the Provost in their annual efforts to collect honorific awards information from faculty. For about a decade, they'd been managing this clunky old Microsoft Access database, storing that information in there. They were elated to work with us and to transition that process over into Pure. And so every year they collect the information and provide it to us. We clean it and load it directly into Pure. And we also do that with the news items that are released by our Office of Strategic Communications on campus. And just real quickly, I actually don't want faculty in the system polluting my data, and I'll expand on that in the next question.
That's a good point. So I wish I could say that we've automated everything and it just comes in, and we're just not there yet. I think we're still early enough in our stewardship of Pure to say we've made it to that point. We do use PRS. It does import a lot of the data we bring in from Scopus or the publication data. On a monthly basis, I've identified certain websites that we commonly publish to. And so I have a workflow where I can run reports out of those systems. I use SciVal, which is Scopus. Web of Science has Insights, IEEE Explore, our internal lab review system, I run a report out of there. Department of Energy has a website called OSTI where they publish any scientific technological information coming out of the lab, and I can export the entire year's worth of data to BibTeX, and then I run a BibTeX import. That one's based, I just do a rolling thing, like a rolling, I just look at the current calendar year. I don't try to go retroactively because it would just be so much data and a lot of profiles that don't exist anymore because they've left the lab and such. So there's a manual push, and then once again, we do reach out for individual input. We have tried to expand the data content where we do, in our department, there is a group that helps identify and put together packages for honorific awards. So we have a large push. That department's only been around for about 2 years, so it's brand new, but we work very closely with them to try to get any awards from their system into Pure. And then there is an internal effort to track equipment at our lab, but it has to be internal only because some of the data is sensitive. So we're currently working with them. Once their system is up and running, we hope to automate some sort of import that will bring equipment into the tool as well. But it is definitely a mixture of all those items, as well as there are some researchers that do love taking ownership of their profile, and they will add data. And so we use the workflow process to identify anything that was added by or modified by someone outside of our group to make sure that it's cleaned up and it falls within the same categories and labels as everything else. So when we run reports, they're as accurate as possible.
That's great. I think on this note, we can really dive deep into it and open the floor to questions. Any questions from anyone? Yes, please.
Okay, my question's for Brian. You said that you had, before the portal was public, it was internal only. How long was that?
So I'll get a little chatty about that. So when I joined, when they transferred me, they showed up in my office and said, "Hey, you're moving departments this week." But it was like so within our lab, there are 3 people that run the lab. It was the second highest person in the whole company. And she's like, "I think you do a good job. We want to move you from student data, and we're going to add in publication data." Not even my manager knew this was happening, and it happened to our whole department. Our whole department split from 1 department to 4 departments, and we all got moved around. So it wasn't just me. I was the only person that moved to research excellence. The very first conversation I had with that, and that was 3 years ago. The very first conversation I had with my research excellence director was that she took a job in Colorado, and she was going to be moving. So I was going to be by myself in a department where she really hadn't done much because she worked on her research. And so for a while they were looking for a new director, I used that time basically to learn Pure. So that first 6 months to a year, I was just trying to learn the tool and not trying to rock the boat or get myself into trouble. I basically just kept working on student data. And so from then, we got a new director who actually lives here in Chicago. And she's amazing, just the best boss ever, and is really passionate about this data. And we worked together internally for about a year to kind of clean the data, get it up and running. But then our CEO really wanted the data to be public. He thought it was one of I guess the driver for that was one of the lead individuals above us in the Department of Energy at a meeting said, "Hey, I go to all the other national labs and I go to their homepage every week. I click on this link and it tells me all the wonderful things that they're doing. And I go to Idaho National Lab and I don't know what you guys are working on." And so it wasn't just us. He wanted us to get the portal out for that reason, but also communications copied what the other labs were doing, and they improved their news flow on our homepage. So it took, it really was kind of an easy process. It was like a click of a button to say, let's go public. And then we just ran with it, and we've been improving things ever since. But there was no big cleanup effort. It was like, hey, the data's already pretty good. Let's just get it out into the public. So that was the life cycle up till now.
If I can just further on that question, so Los Alamos, for example, is also a Pure customer, but they're very much hidden. What do you do with sensitive research information? Is it even added to Pure?
We do not. So one of my workflow steps is I only pull from public sources. I mentioned earlier I'll go into our export compliance software, but if I can't find that information already in the public domain, I actually don't add it to Pure. So you won't find any of our non-public or sensitive data in there. That may be a question that comes up in the future if it becomes like a central repository for all data. But for the reporting we use it for, there's not currently a demand for including any kind of sensitive or classified data. And so, yeah, that one we haven't ventured into.
What about the other panel? What do you guys, how do you deal with the confidential research?
We take the same approach. I'm only getting data that is publicly available elsewhere. We have not added any sort of sensitive data to our system, and I'm very happy to keep it that way.
We have some posters that hasn't come across very often where I'm at, but we have some students and faculty, who would present like a poster at a conference, particularly, and they ask that it not be put in the institutional repository or Pure, because a lot of our Pure profiles, our citations for posters are linked to the institutional repository. So we restrict it from both the institutional repository and the Pures so that it's not shown to the public.
Okay, more questions?
Okay, this is for Scott. You said that you are creating Pure profiles for your non-Pure profiled list, and then for students. How do you handle like the timing of deactivating? Because that's something I'm curious about, because it's really nice when we upload, most of our profiles are created automatically with our HR import, and then when they fall off of that list and the criteria that we get from HR, their profiles are deactivated, and we know that they're not here anymore, so it's fine, but I'm curious how you handle that.
Yeah, well, for faculty, we are just notified whether if they resign or if they leave campus. I'm given a report, that my director gets a report of a list of people that have left the campus. And then we go through and I don't delete them off of here. I just restrict them on their visibility so that we can keep the data for reporting purposes later. Like one of our deans does reports for accreditations, and she wants a report. I'd like a report of faculty articles that were written in the last, say, 5 years. And say, that faculty, even though they don't show on the portal anymore, their data is still in there, and their research will still count as research done at the university. But for students, their profiles are on there. The medical students are on there we keep them on there for 10 years. You know, for their medical students, so they do 4 years of medical education and then 4 years of residency and an extra 2 years, and then we cut them off. And the first set of students that we did that was for the year 2015, so it's been 10 years. So we haven't cut off those students yet. We're not going to cut them off, we're just going to restrict them. So.
Thank you. I believe we had one more question there in the corner. From the gentleman standing just by the column.
I'm not sure if you mentioned this earlier, but do you advertise your Pure portals like outside of the university? And if so, what would you say was the most successful way of advertising the Pure portals?
Excellent question about publicly promoting portals. Shall we go from that side now?
So the most fortuitous thing that happened to us is that communications likes the portal because they have to do less work. Because yeah, comms loves the portal because they don't have to go searching for the data. They can just ask Brian and he can tell them what they're looking for. So they publish, like they post to social media, things like LinkedIn and other social media sites. They also create newsletters for the different divisions and departments within our lab. We have a bi-weekly newsletter that goes out called the R Notes. It's a researcher notes, and then a student notes. And anytime, as like a thank you, anytime they link to a research journal article, the link that they use is to the Pure site. And so if they want more information, they jump back to Pure. There are some instances where they'll use like the DOI or the original source, depending on what their director or leadership wants. But if it's internal especially, or if they can, they'll link back to Pure as a way of advertising the system and getting more traffic to it.
This is a really great question. We haven't made any direct efforts to advertise Pure beyond our campus. Although we do know from our analytics data that we're getting a lot of traffic from Google because all our pages are indexed in Google. And so folks are finding us there. And word of mouth is another great way of people finding out about our service. It's very trite, but I frequently think that, my approach has been, if you build it, they will come. And that's been my approach to curating that wonderful, rich data set that's as up to date as I can make it, that is as complete and comprehensive as I can make it, and that is as accurate as it can be, so that people are using it. Because we know that people all across our campus in different roles want data. And so I want to make it available to them. And so as I mentioned earlier, I don't do a lot of outreach directly to faculty, but I work with folks who fall under the umbrella of the research development community. So these are proposal development and grant management specialists, facilities managers, equipment managers, folks who are working in communications offices across campus, as well as folks in IT, especially web developers who want to make use of our data on their websites. And so I found that has been really effective, engaging that community, because that's the support staff. That's the support network for our researchers. And as long as we're making those support staff more effective in their roles, they're spending less time chasing down faculty, which is freeing them up to do more research and scholarship, which makes the faculty happy. So that's kind of my approach to engagement with faculty, is working with folks in the research development community. That has made our faculty happy because they're not having to spend a lot of time on administrative data re-entry. They're then referring it to their colleagues to use, hey, go out to this site and use it to find peer reviewers or potential collaborators. They're referring their students to the site. to find mentors or resources for coursework. And of course, they're reaching out to their colleagues on other campuses and referring them to our traffic, or to our portal.
On our campus, I can think of two ways that our Pure Porter is promoted. One is we have about 2 or 3 conferences that are hosted on our campus, but the one big major one is in February, is the OSU Center for Health Sciences Research Week, and where everybody does oral presentations, posters, and so we work with the External Affairs Department, the Marketing Department, and before that conference, they publish faculty who have research opportunities and their Pure research profiles, and to let students and other faculty know what what their research area is and that they have research opportunities. And so it's kind of a way to we reach out and communicate to people that learn about those opportunities for them to do further research. And the second thing that we do or our campus does to promote our Pure profile is we have 5 research units, research centers, and some of them are on campus, some of them are off campus, and all of them have websites, and they require their researchers to have research profiles, and they're listed on their websites, not the university website, but the OSU Research Center websites, and they link their bios to Pure, and some of them also I've noticed, and I was happy to see that they'll have a link to their Pure profile and their email signature in their emails.
Great, thank you. And just from kind of looking not just at the Americas, but at the global audience for Pure, this is what we see a lot. And also if we look at the Google advice, that high quality data and interlinking is what makes you rank better at the search engines, because the more you link out and you get links to your portal on other especially popular websites, the higher the trust index is. So the more linking and of course, the more benevolence from the faculty, that's what drives it. So it's not just something we see in the US, it's also something we see globally in other regions as well. Any more questions? Yes, please.
Let me give you the microphone quickly.
When you say linking, what does that mean? Is that on other web pages? Is that in social media posts? Is that any sort of place that link is displayed?
Pretty much all of it. So if you have a main website, your main university website, you could say, please look at our research, and then the portal. But as the panelists said, it's like any interlinking, social media, any other resources, that all helps to drive traffic. Anything else?
Yeah, on that note, we advise during implementation, if at all possible, get a link from your university landing page. Because if the landing page has a lot of traffic, it's a high trust page, and then linking to the Pure portal elevates the Pure portal right from the start. So if there's a chance, research, or like in the drop-down menus or in any prominent position on the landing page, this will drive a lot of traffic and higher rankings.
Yep. Do we have more questions from the floor? Yes, please.
Does anyone use on your web pages, your department web pages for your institution? Does anyone have any, like our teams sort of buttons on the navigation where you can redirect people to who is a member of your faculty, and then it redirects to Pure?
So redirecting specifically to person profiles, if
Right.
that's used on the website.
Right. We've done that for a while, and plus we have doctor profiles, Find a Doctor directory, and those are linked directly to our profiles, to the Pure persons. Just wondering if anybody else does that.
So we know that we get a lot of traffic, as I mentioned earlier, that comes in from Google, but a lot of traffic we get from campus comes in through campus websites, because even before folks were using the API to extract data, they were posting links on their websites out to the Pure portal, and so we get a lot of folks coming in that way.
We don't really have like separate campuses. There are some missions that have their own, like, they'd be less than a dozen profiles on any given initiative. So I would say Pure pretty much acts as our main directory for finding individuals on our external website. There's not really another option until you really dig deep into some of the individual programs. There's not like a large directory for any other big organization. So I don't know if there's a big opportunity for just the way we're set up.
Any further questions from the floor? Yes, please.
Mark, can you talk about your data set integration? We've run into problems with the publisher field. It's just the data model for data sets has been difficult for us, partly because we actually host a lot of data sets that we don't create ourselves. And so, can you just say a little bit more about data sets?
Yeah, so we have, in addition to our publication institutional repository, we have a separate repository for data sets. It's called the Illinois Data Bank. It was developed by our library. And we open that up to researchers to deposit their data sets, and we'll actually mint a DOI for that data set. And so all of those, and so our integration is specifically for that repository. And so we have set the publisher to automatically populate as University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Yeah.
I'm just curious, Mark, as a follow-up to that question, are you looking at or considering the DataCite import source now as well, or not?
Yeah, so back when it was still Data Monitor, I believe we had taken a look at that. It's mainly a consequence of me being the only person working on Pure, and just having the bandwidth to further investigate it is really kind of why that hasn't happened yet.
I think we have time for 2 more questions.
Somewhat loaded question, but have any of you figured out meaningful metrics for assessing the impact beyond your campus? The Google hits or the this or the that, how you kind of quantify that and assess ROI beyond the internal benefits?
So I have one thing that I do, and then there's one thing I should be doing that I'm currently not. Just it falls off the to-do list. So we did get Google Analytics tied to our site. So I will log in and track kind of our footprint on Google Analytics. But it's just like on an ad hoc, I just feel like looking at it. I'm not actively tracking the history, and that's something I should be doing. The other thing I do is when anybody contacts a researcher through our page, I actually have the emails coming to me first. I don't have it go directly to the researcher. Originally, that was set up for me to monitor for spam. I was worried that I would just be spamming my researchers. And then the idea was that I was going to turn that off, and if it was mostly direct, real communications, that it would just go direct to the researcher. And it, for the most part, is. I would say the majority of our contacts are legitimate, but I've enjoyed tracking the number of outreach and who they're coming from. So I use that mail traffic to see how many people from the outside are reaching out to our researchers through the portal. And it's really fun to see some of those communications come through, like, hey, we are old friends from 10 years ago, and this is the only thing I can find about you, and I want to work with you again. And so it's kind of this big win in my soul that I'm like, hey, like they couldn't find them anywhere else, but somehow my site reconnected them after like a decade of being apart professionally. So I keep that going. It's a little bit of a headache because I have to manually forward every message onto the researcher, but it's been giving me insight on how external people are using the site.
So, yeah, I struggled with this early on. The big metric everyone wanted to know is how many collaborations are coming out of the use of Pure. And if anybody has any answers to that, I would love to hear it, because I know that's happening, but the researchers aren't thinking, hey, we need to contact Mark and let him know that we made these connections. But some of the metrics I've thought to look at over the years, number one, Google Analytics, to take a look at who all's coming into our portal to take a look. We also connect the portal to our library catalog through use of a link resolver. So I started looking at that last year and finding that, the first month of the academic year, we're seeing 2,500 people click through from the portal into our library catalog, which is really wonderful. And also I can point to, we've got a growing number of use cases on campus now. So I can say, we've got X number of use cases for all these different services and activities that we're supporting. And through those activities, getting people excited and helping them out and really leaning on them to be the cheerleaders in the room with administration.
On our campus, we haven't really assessed how many people are viewing our portal, but I'm glad you asked that question, because that gives me an idea. We do monitor how many website views we get on the library website from our external affairs department, because they keep track of that. And so because you asked that question, I'm going to ask them if there's a way, if they're able to track the links on our websites to see if people are clicking on our research profiles link. And the library website is not the only site that has the research profile link. The research department does too, and there's several other departments. I might see if they can track it down to the linking level on our web pages. Thank you.
Just to add from our side, we also have Adobe Analytics. This is something that we use internally. So unless you told us not to use it, we would have it for the past 3 years for your portal. So if you're sitting here thinking like, I'd like that data, please reach out to support, and they can share the report with you.
I believe we are at time. Of course, the panelists are still available for questions, but be prepared for the next session. Dr. Diego Lorenzano and Victorino Sepulveda.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for the questions, and thank you to our panelists.